And it is after 4, so let's get going. Hello, everyone. My name is Darren. I'm one of the marketing coordinators for BCIT's School of Health Sciences, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to this information session for prosthetics and orthotics. First off, I want to mention how happy we are to see you all, and thank you for attending our presentation today. And feel free to post any questions or comments you have into the chat during the presentation. And we will do our best to address those near the end of the presentation in the Q&A segment. And just before we get going, I would like to mention that the BCIT campuses are located on the unceded traditional territories of the Coast Salish nations of the Squamish, Tsleil-Waututh, and Musqueam. The agenda for this evening or tonight is going to be the welcome and introductions. We're going to do a quick poll just to see where everyone is at. We'll watch a quick prosthetics and orthotics video. Then we'll go through the presentation and program overviews. We will have some information from program advising, and then we'll get to the Q&A at the very end. And I'm going to move on to introducing Lauren, who is the program head, and he will give the main part of the presentation, and then I'll jump back in after for some admissions information. Thanks, Lauren.
Thanks, Darren. Hello, everyone, and welcome to tonight. As Darren mentioned, my name is Lauren Schubert, and I am the program head for the Prosthetics and Orthotics program. So welcome. In a minute, you'll watch a video which provides a great overview of the profession and what it means to be a prosthetist or orthotist. A little bit about myself. I graduated myself from this program in 2010 and have been practicing as a certified prosthetist and involved in education ever since. It's an incredibly exciting and rewarding career, and I look forward to being able to share a little bit about the profession and our program over the next hour.
Many people in our community require the use of prosthetic and orthotic treatment. A prosthetist provides treatment for patients with limb loss. This treatment includes the provision of an artificial limb, known as a prosthesis. An orthotist provides treatment for patients with physical impairments. This treatment includes the provision of an orthopedic brace, known as an orthosis. Both professions require patient assessments, fittings, and follow-up care as part of the treatment process.
I think an aspect of prosthetics orthotics that most people don't understand is that we're quite unique in the fact that we get to see a patient or a client from the very beginning of their treatment process, and you get to be influential and part of the rehab team right through to the end. The really neat thing is that you make lifelong relationships with these people, so those patients become your patients for life, and so you see them ongoing. Even once the rest of the rehab team is gone, you're still involved with their care long term. And in fact, most amputees in particular consider their prosthetist their primary health care provider, the ones that they find a really important part of their care. And orthotically speaking, I think we have a very unique approach to patient care, and that again we see the whole picture from start to finish. We have the ability to modify that treatment program, to make adjustments, to intervene and to make changes, and to go to the table with different types of options for them that are a really important part of taking them to the next level.
About 3.5 months ago, I had a skiing accident. They've prescribed me with this knee brace. The foot thing is basically, it allows me to walk as I would normally without an injury.
An undergraduate degree is a prerequisite to the 2-year diploma program, followed by a 2-year residency. A certification exam must be completed at the end of the residency to ensure qualification.
I like that right away we get our patient experience, and I also like that once a week we get to do rotations around the city so that we can, for instance, we shadow orthopedic surgeons, physiatrists, physiotherapists, and we get to see patients from a different perspective. So we get to see them from the physiotherapist perspective and from the surgeon perspective, which is interesting when you compare it to how we see it with our own prosthetists and orthotists.
Prosthetic and orthotic practitioners work closely with other healthcare professionals such as physiotherapists and orthopedic surgeons to promote the highest standard of patient care. The field also relies heavily on the support of technicians, who are also specially trained for the prosthetic and orthotic field.
As a technical instructor, I try to teach the complexity of the manufacturing side of our profession. I try to expose them to the vast array of materials and procedures involved, so that they can take that as a working knowledge and be comfortable applying that to their patients.
Every part of it I love. There's the personal satisfaction of actually getting to make something and fabricate something. There's the satisfaction of getting to help somebody in their lives. There's the fact that it's kind of artistic and yet at the same time very engineer-like. Just literally everything about it makes me excited to come to work every single day.
My leg lets me keep up with the other people in my class, especially in PE, and be really good in goalie. And pretty much, yeah, it helps me do most of the things that acquire moving.
The prostheses, it allows me to do anything I want to do. That, to say, I cycle, I jog sometimes, I go in for long walks. Allows me to do my work. I'm on my feet most of the day. It allows me to live.
I would say that it's a creative science and an art that goes together, and you're basically using your knowledge of materials, and you're using your knowledge of biomechanics, you're using your knowledge of physics, but also interpersonal psychology and quality of life kinds of things. You're trying to create a device for somebody that they can actually use to improve their quality of life.
In our P&O profession, the people that get into it, they genuinely care about other people, and I think that's a big plus right there. And one of the biggest misconceptions, I think people think that we just make people arms or legs or give them a brace. We just deliver a product. And to me, it's just really disheartening to hear something like that, because you develop such great relationships with your patients. And I think the colleges and the universities are really preparing the students very, very well right now. And there's so much interest in research in our field. And I think it's really good that you have the chance to do a lot of research projects and things yourselves. And with that, I think the future of prosthetics and orthotics is going to be amazing. To me, it's not just doing my job, it's just getting into it. I love it. After all these years, it's just one of the best things, and I'm so happy that I picked this field over other fields.
It's exciting to be a part of this field at a time where there's so much change and so much new technologies coming out, and so it'd be exciting to see where this field is going to head in the future, and it's cool to be a part of.
With the laughing for 10 minutes.
Once.
Oh, we're in this video.
Yeah, this looks good. We're good.
Okay.
If you want one of these, I'll sell it to you.
What's that? As a technical.
So,
See that on camera.
The Canadian Association for Prosthetics and Orthotics is the national professional organization for the field of prosthetics and orthotics in Canada. It represents more than 500 certified and registered practitioners across Canada and internationally. Its purpose is to promote professionalism, ongoing education, and awareness to both its members and to the public, and to encourage outstanding clinical and technical skills in the field of prosthetics and orthotics.
There you go. Thanks, Darren. So hopefully that video gave you a little snapshot into the world of prosthetics and orthotics and the profession. So as the video alluded to, prosthetists and orthotists design and fabricate custom orthopedic devices, and we provide lifelong treatment to those who need these devices. As prosthetists, we work with those who have experienced limb loss, and orthotists work with those who have had an injury or pathology that requires a brace or support. And as I've mentioned already, it is rewarding and ever-changing and also challenging. In this image, most of you probably know who this is. It's Terry Fox, and he's a hero to Canadians for the impact he made related to cancer awareness. But he's also a local hero to those in the prosthetics and orthotics profession because of how he did it. Terry ran across Canada using a prosthetic leg, one that was actually designed and fabricated here in Vancouver. Although quite dated technology now, our profession helped play a significant role in his life and enabled him to run all that way. We have the amazing opportunity to help patients just like Terry to achieve their goals and to return to a functional life by providing prosthetic and orthotic treatment. So some fun facts about our program. So as alluded to, we have a program that's a combination of all sorts of different areas, including art and science. You get to work with your hands, but also your mind, and you get to be physical and fabricate something while at the same time playing an active role directly with the patients that we work with and making a difference in someone's life. We get to build lifelong relationships with those patients. We often start with patients potentially early in their life, and they likely will require those devices for their whole lifetime. So we get to build some really, really amazing relationships with those patients over the years. We get to apply our understanding of a variety of different skills and knowledge based on pathology, biomechanics, material sciences, and anatomy and physiology. And of course, it is a constantly evolving profession with regular innovations in technology and research daily or at least weekly. So our program is 2 years. It's made up of 4 terms in the fall and the winter for 2 years with summer off in between. We currently take 12 students and our intake is every 2 years. So our next intake is September 2022, this year. On top of our typical classes, we have weekly clinical rotations where students will go to a variety of allied healthcare settings and prosthetic and orthotic clinics to gain weekly experience in the field and with allied healthcare. We also have 2 placements that are 4 weeks long each, one in prosthetics and one in orthotics, where our students get to apply all the knowledge and skills that they're learning in the classroom and the lab in an actual P&O clinic. We have a capstone research project that our students will work on starting from term 1 and spanning all the way through to the end, where they're creating some unique study or creating some sort of device that is fairly inventive, and then they get to present that to their family, their friends, and people in the profession at quite an exciting evening that comes up in May every 2 years. We also have an optional co-enrollment through the McMaster University Master of Rehab Sciences program. So some of our students decide that they want to achieve a master's level education, and that fits well with our program to do both as a co-enrollment option. There's our current lab there, as you see behind me as well. And as far as job opportunities or the career outlook for this profession, upon graduation, you need to complete a 2-year residency, and you can complete that anywhere in Canada under a certified prosthetist or orthotist. Once you have completed your 2-year residency, you would then go on to complete your national level certification exam. In terms of where you might find yourself working, some clinicians will work at a private clinic or some in a hospital setting or a public institution. Some work in very small remote clinics and work under an independent clinician that owns the clinic, or you might find yourself at a very busy clinic with many colleagues, or one day you might even own your own clinic. So there's a lot of variety and career opportunity. Some of our students decide to practice in prosthetics, some in orthotics, and some become dual certified and practice in both designations. In terms of salary, there can be quite a range depending on years of experience and level of responsibility. Typically, resident salaries range from about $52,000 to $55,000, and certified prosthetist or orthotist salaries range from about $55,000 to $105,000. And then on top of that, any business opportunities or owning your own clinic would be significantly greater than that. So here's just a few pictures that really capture just a very small amount of what actually happens with our graduates. So in the first picture on the left-hand side, you can see this woman is performing an assessment. This could be at home, at a hospital, or in a clinic. She's assessing this person's residual limb for a new prosthesis. In this assessment, they would perform quite a thorough patient history, strength, range of motion, a physical assessment, find out the goals about and the device requirements from the patient, and really get to know that patient in quite a bit of detail so they can provide the best option in terms of device design for them. In this second image, this gentleman is creating an impression of the person's limb, their full leg. This would be for an orthotic device. And this could be done either with plaster or could be a digital scan. Basically, you're acquiring the shape or the starting point to be able to build the device off of. Then after that, in this third picture, this gentleman is then modifying or rectifying, essentially changing that shape to be more conducive to making it more comfortable, anatomically appropriate on the patient's limb, potentially suspending off the patient's limb. So a fair bit of change needs to happen between actually taking that first impression and then being prepared to design the device off of it. And then the device would be fabricated either in-house or through a third party. And then comes the most important part of actually fitting or integrating that device into the patient's life and into their body. So that includes both evaluating the device itself on the patient's limb for comfort and fit, suspension, but also having that patient, if it's a lower limb device, figuring out how it works as they're walking. So a lot of biomechanics and gait evaluation to really optimize that device in a variety of settings. And then after that, after we provide that treatment to the patient, there's basically just an ongoing treatment as needed for repairs, replacement, alterations to the device as they go. So we see our patients quite frequently, even after we provide the device to them. And I believe that is it for me. Oh, sorry, one more. So we just added this student testimonial in. I know it's lengthy, but I thought I would read it because it has quite a few gems in it. And this was from one of our current students that will be graduating in just a few months from now. So Morgan says, there are a couple different factors that make me really love the profession of P&O. I enjoy the satisfaction of helping others. I like being creative when problem solving, but meticulous with follow through. And I enjoy a variety of working with my hands and my head. This profession allows me to have all that in one place. I have the ability to connect with patients and help them meet their goals and their needs and goals. There's no one way of getting to the final answer when providing a treatment plan. So I get to use my clinical reasoning to decide what the best course of action is, which allows me to be creative. Since the devices are manufactured in-house, I also get to be creative about how those devices are designed in terms of material selection, fabrication techniques, etc. However, once the treatment plan is decided on, I get to be meticulous with the follow-through to ensure the device fits properly and meets the goals of the treatment. All of these factors allow me to work with both my head and my hands. I get to use clinical reasoning and gait analysis to create treatment plans, which is my head. I get to do shape capture, modification, and in some instances, fabrication to create the devices, which is my hands. Overall, it creates a very rewarding profession to be a part of. And thank you for that. Back to you, Darren.
Yeah, thank you, Lauren. That was excellent. Appreciate all that information. And now I will be reviewing with you the entrance requirements and admissions process, along with briefly discussing some key student services that are available for you at BCIT. Admittedly, I'm not the program advisor, so if you have any questions, we'll make sure you have the contact information near the end, and maybe you can actually get answered in the Q&A at the very end. But for right now, I just wanted to mention that the Prosthetics and Orthotics program is offered every 2 years. As of October 1st, you may apply for September, I better say 2023, or my notes are incorrect. The department will select applicants after the deadline date of March the 1st. And please note the applicant residency requirement. At this time, the program is currently only accepting applications from residents of Western Canada, specifically the provinces of BC, Alberta, Saskatchewan, and Manitoba. Must be a current resident for 6 months or longer at the time that they apply, and the proof of residency is typically something like a bill or a piece of mail with current address on it, but it must have a date on it and be addressed to that specific person. They can also use a current driver's license or provincial ID, as long as the valid from or issued date is at least 6 months ago and it is not expired.
Darren, just to clarify on the application dates there. So because we're in a 2-year intake, it'll be September 2024 will be the next application window, because our application period just closed yesterday for our September 2022 intake. So we'll be looking at a very similar window of approximately October to March 2024 for our next intake of September 2024.
Thank you for that correction, Lauren. Appreciate that. And I just want to let you know, filling out the online application is relatively straightforward. Once application opens for each cycle, you can log in and review the online application. You can work on filling out the application at your own pace. It does not go to admissions until you pay the application fee. And the date you apply does not have an impact on your application. You have until the application deadline date to submit your application. And regarding the application process, you will firstly review all entrance requirements and the application process dates. You will then upgrade if necessary, and BCIT does offer upgrading courses in many subjects, and program advising can assist you with that. Ensure that when you apply, you have all of your required documents, such as transcripts, ready to scan and upload as PDF files. And if you go to bcit.ca/admission, it will guide you through a step-by-step application process. Then once you are ready to apply, you can visit bcit.ca/apply and then pay the application fee, and the domestic students pay $90 Canadian. And the application process takes place entirely online. Therefore, you will need to convert your official transcripts and any additional documents that may be required into PDF files. And now let's review the requirements. Proficiency in speaking and listening with 2 years of full-time education in English in an English-speaking country or equivalent tests and courses. English Studies 12 at 67%, or 3 credits of post-secondary English or humanities or social sciences, a bachelor degree in any field from a recognized school with 120 credits. We will require a Casper test and a snapshot results, and those are taken online at takealtus.com. And there's a mandatory applicant questionnaire. But preference will be given to applicants with the following related experience: post-secondary academic level courses like anatomy and physiology, 6 credits, chemistry, grade 12, physics with 3 credits, statistics, 3 credits, or psychology, 3 credits, academics and related experience completed within the last 5 years. There's no specific GPA required to the application. However, a strong GPA is preferred in that it shows an aptitude for post-secondary coursework, but numerical grades are just one piece of the larger picture. Successful candidates are well-rounded, and selected candidates often possess consistently strong marks, a demonstrated interest in the field, and relevant recent volunteer or work experience. A B+ average is an advantage, especially in preferred courses. and volunteered or paid work experience hours involving direct interaction with people with cognitive, emotional, or physical disabilities. For example, volunteer wheelchair basketball or special events, camps, and rehabilitation settings, and prosthetics and orthotics clinics. Preference for experience within the last 5 years. As mentioned as part of the online application, you will need to upload documents for a timely assessment to be completed. You can download official digital transcripts, or you can convert your transcripts and documents to PDF files. Information on how to convert documents to PDF files is available on our website. For example, you can scan or take pictures of your official transcripts and save them as PDF files. And please ensure you upload all required documents to minimize delays in application processing. And the admission process is: first, admissions reviews applications to ensure the requirements have been met. Admissions will then forward completed applications to the P&O department. After the application deadline, P&O department shortlists and selects applicants. Then admissions will send the acceptance letter, and then the commitment fee is paid. And the commitment fee is currently $500. Now, moving from academics, I would like to let you know BCIT is committed to supporting students in a holistic sense. We want you to succeed not only in your academics, but also outside of school. Some student services are available to you as a prospective student, and others will be available to you once you become an enrolled student. And here are some important student supports that I'd like to mention. If you are Indigenous, BCIT's Indigenous Initiatives Department is there to ensure that you have a smooth transition into your first year. They offer peer-to-peer mentorship, a welcoming gathering place, and provide clarification on Indigenous funding. BCIT's awards, scholarships, and bursaries are listed on our financial aids and awards webpage. And BCIT is committed to providing assistance to students with permanent or temporary disabilities. If you have been accepted to a program and believe you may need accommodation to be successful, I encourage you to connect with our Accessibility Services Department. BCIT Student Health Services is a health clinic located at the Burnaby campus. They provide medical care for current BCIT students all year round. We also have a counseling and student development department. They're available to help you enhance your educational performance and maximize your success as a student at BCIT. And last but not least, our recreation services promotes, encourages, and enables the practice of physical well-being. We consider recreation an integral part of campus life and welcome all students to enjoy their services. And if you have any questions after today, I encourage you to connect with Program Advising. They are available via telephone, email, and Zoom appointment. Please go to the webpage at bcit.ca/advising for the up-to-date contact information and service hours. And I should mention, if your inquiry is time sensitive, please call for assistance. Use the phone number directly. And also, for more information and to connect with us, we'd love to have you sign up and check out our Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, or LinkedIn accounts. And of course, on the bcit.ca website, there's a lot more information on big info and other info sessions and advising. And I would suggest you check that out. And just before we get to the Q&A, I want you to note these important emails. There's Lauren's email on top. If you have any program specific questions you'd like to ask after this, maybe it's personal and you just want to talk to Lauren. And if there are more admissions questions, you can certainly send an email to program_advising@bcit.ca. And the Prosthetics and Orthotics program page on the BCIT website is a great facts page, and there's lots of good information there, and I would encourage you to check that out also. And that brings us to the questions and answers. So I have not had a chance to look at my chat for a while, so let me have a look and see if there's any questions waiting. It looks like, move this where I can see it. Currently, we have one question. how would the co-enrollment option work with McMaster's University? Is the McMaster's portion of the program online? Does it affect the timeline of program completion?
Yeah, I'm happy to take that. Thanks, Darren. Thanks, Ryan, for your question. So the co-enrollment is basically enrollment through two separate, through both BCIT and then separately through the McMaster University. Most students that get into our program have no problem also successfully getting into the McMaster Master of Rehab Science program, but they do run independently. The McMaster program, the Rehab Science program, is entirely online. I took it myself a couple of years after graduating from this program, and you don't need to step a foot or a day on campus at McMaster itself. You can complete everything you need to online. As far as the timeline, most students will take one course at a time while currently going through our BCIT program. And if they choose to do that, so basically 3 courses a year, so one in the fall, one in the winter or spring, and then one in the summer. If they choose to do that, then it's 8 courses. So that would take you through kind of 2 2/3 years, so almost 3 years. So most students who choose that approach will complete our program, and then they'll still have 2-ish courses to take after they graduate from our program before they then graduate from the McMaster program. And it varies depending on the year, but we've had as much as 7 or 8 of our 12 students take the McMaster co-enrollment, or as little as this last cohort, we have 2 students, and that's largely because so much has been online lately. And so though we are fully transitioned back to in-class on-campus programming, our recent cohort, there was only 2 students who decided to do the co-enrollment option. The co-enrollment does not provide any selective or preferential treatment in our selection process. So regardless of whether you decide to do the co-enrollment, you'll be weighted the exact same in your selection process for BCIT.
Thanks, Lauren. And I'm just going to ask Ryan's follow-up question before I get to Brent's question. So Ryan asked, so I could theoretically take the courses during my residency.
That's right. Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
So some students will decide that they want to do their master's degree after they graduate, or even after they've been practicing for a few years. There is a benefit to taking it through your residency. You are offered credit for the hours, or a certain number of hours per course towards your residency hours. So I mentioned that you have to complete 2 years of a residency in prosthetics or orthotics. And so those courses would go towards your residency hours and potentially ensure that you're able to meet those residency hours within 2 years, or even allow you to take a bit of time off somewhere in there, so it's not so stressful to get your hours completed.
Great, thanks, Lauren. And 2 questions from Brent. What is a Casper test? I wish I had the link handy. I'd put it in the chat. But I know
Do you want me to take that quickly? Give Lauren.
Sure, if you'd like.
Sure. So the Casper test is not a test that you can necessarily study for, but it's definitely one that you can prepare a little bit for. So when the time comes to write it, you won't really have any sort of surprises. So the Casper site itself, which I'll put in the chat in a second here, does provide a lot of information, but it's really a test that's asking you questions about everyday scenarios. So it's assessing your social intelligence and professionalism. There are many questions, or I should say frequently asked questions on the Casper site. And once you register for the test in the application cycle, that you will be writing the test. So it's too early to write it now for September 2024. You won't be writing it until the earliest would be fall of 2023. They actually do have a sample test that you can take first before actually writing the actual test. I'd also like to mention the test can only be written once in the application cycle. So if you write it in the fall of 2023, and for whatever reason you wanted to rewrite it before the deadline date, that's not possible. So you can only write it once in each application cycle.
Thank you, Melinda. Very helpful. Okay. And I did put the web address there, but they have many tests, so you'll have to go under find the Casper there. And the other question was, why is the program limited to Western Canada?
Yeah, so that's a great question. We certainly wish that we had enough spots in our program for to take anyone across Canada or even internationally. We are limited to only 12 spots in the program at the moment. Again, we hope to even take some additional seats in the future. But it really comes down to the structure from the Ministry of Advanced Education in BC and how they lay out what spots are available to residents depending on their province. It's a bit of a different breakdown every 2 years. Typically, we have a minimum of at least 5 spots available to BC residents. And then the additional spots adding up to 12 is very dependent on what agreements are in place between the Ministry of Education from each province and what agreements are in place to make those additional seats happen for Western Canadian provinces. If we had agreements in place with other provinces outside of Western Canada, then it would certainly be possible for us to offer seats to those provinces as well.
Thanks, Lauren. Do I have to decide? Whoop, my screen jumped. Do I have to decide on enrollment upon my initial admission, or can I decide later throughout the program?
Yeah, good question.
Co-enrollment,
well.
sorry. I missed co-enrollment.
Yeah. No problem. So as far as the co-enrollment goes, the application deadline for the McMaster Master of Rehab Sciences program is after our applicants find out whether they've successfully been chosen for our program or not. So what that means is that you would typically, your application would be due by March 1st, and then the selection committee would make their decisions on who the successful candidates are for P&O. And within probably a month to 2 months at the most, depending on a few different variables. And typically the application deadline for McMaster and their program is usually July 1st. So that leaves at least a couple months for decisions to be made about whether the successful applicants to our program would be interested in enrolling in the McMaster program. That being said, some people have started the McMaster program before they even decide to get into our program. So there's nothing to necessarily say that you can't start early or start late. Some students also decide that they want to do a year of our BCIT program before starting an additional program at McMaster. So there's a lot of flexibility and a lot of options. There's no necessarily one way or one best way to do it. What is great is when you have colleagues or co-students who are also completing it at the same time. And then you have the benefit of being able to learn together, even though it's an entirely online program. Through McMaster, you have the benefit of being able to collaborate with your classmates in person and work through some of those courses together.
Great, thanks, Lauren. Kate is asking, is there a higher acceptance rate for students with a bachelor in a specific field or major?
Yeah, thanks, Kate. These are some great questions. Keep them coming. So yes and no. We don't necessarily look specifically at the undergrad degree or the bachelor degree that the student the applicant is submitting. What we do look for is those preferred courses. So oftentimes programs like kinesiology or general sciences those students would have already taken those courses and maybe would have excelled more so in them. For that reason, more of our students or more of our classes made up of kinesiology, for example, is probably the biggest group, but that doesn't necessarily mean that that's the most successful because they've gone through a kinesiology program. It's just that it's fairly aligned with that degree, and those students have already taken those preferred courses often as part of their undergrad degree. But we've had a mix of undergrad students, undergrad degrees, everything from nursing to accounting, general studies, arts. We don't differentiate or provide any preference as to what you've taken, more so just those preferred courses and how well you've done in them.
Okay, thanks, Lauren. Is chemistry 12 a requirement? How does this level of chemistry tie into skills learned? Physics 12 makes sense, but chemistry 12? Question mark?
Yeah, good question. So chemistry 12 is not a requirement. It is in the list of preferred courses. As far as how it is tied in, yes, it can seem a little bit more distant to our profession. It comes in the world of material sciences. So we have a couple courses that focus on specific material sciences and understanding how plastics and metals in particular and composites work in the world of prosthetics and orthotics, and how those different materials have different features. And an understanding of at least basic chemistry can help with as a precursor to those courses.
Okay, and I'm not sure if we could answer this one without actually going to the Casper site, maybe even next year, but what is the deadline to take the Casper test before the 2024 admissions? Might be a little ways out.
Yeah, I can only comment on this current intake. Typically, we've had the Casper tests align with the deadline for our program. So for example, the deadline for our program was yesterday for the 2022 intake. We allowed one extra Casper assessment, which is happening on March 6th. So just in case anyone happened to miss that window for our program. So you can expect the Casper admissions kind of deadline for our program to be fairly aligned with the actual due date for our program admission.
And just to add to that, I'm just looking at the current dates for, well, I shouldn't say current, but the dates for this particular intake upcoming, and there were about 9 different Casper dates. So just for you to be aware of, there's typically not just 1 or 2 dates in which you can write the exam. Those multiple dates, so you can choose a date that works best for your schedule in most cases.
Thanks, Meninda. If someone attended a university on the East Coast, are you still eligible to apply? Would those credits transfer over?
Yes. So the short answer would be yes. Yeah, we would accept courses or any undergrad degree from any Canadian institution. As far as where that university was located, it may just bring up the question of where are you a resident, and we define resident as where you have been living for the past 6 months prior to the application due date. So you may just have questions forwarded to you about, can you provide proof of residency to prove that you are actually living in one of the Western Canadian provinces that are eligible for seats in the program.
Great, thanks, Lauren. We've actually come to the end of our time. I put up the information for Lauren and program advising. Those emails might be handy if you have questions that you think of later. Before we go, I want to let everyone know that a copy of the slide presentation will be sent out to all registrants sometime in the next couple of weeks. And we will also have this recording up on YouTube and most likely accessible from the program website. And I would really like to thank you all for being with us today and asking some great questions. And we wish you all the best in your future in health sciences. And I wish you all a great night. And thank you to Lauren and Meninda for all your help.